Irish leftists blame violence against women on misogyny to hide the real cause. Open borders. Like, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to do. It's not. It's misogyny that's murdering all these poor people. Well, it seems that maybe misogyny has a skin color then, like, or misogyny's from somewhere, because it seems to be mostly a certain type of person that's doing it. I'm just, I'm just observing. I'm just noticing things. Ireland's rate of deadly violence against women could fall dramatically through sensible migration policy and other basic programmes. Sensible migration policy. Zero, none. A 2022 report by Real Clear Politics confirmed what many Europeans had long suspected but could not prove because of data obfuscation by individual governments. Europe has a massive immigrant violent crime problem. I mean, we have had data. It's like what many Europeans had long suspected. I mean, yeah, for quite some time. The 10-year data study showed that across the EU, each 1 percentage point increase in immigration and immigrant population is associated with a 3.6% increase in the homicide rate. In Germany, where police and politicians fiercely guard immigrant crime statistics, an academic study found that asylum applicants were responsible for a massive 10.4% rise in violent crime in Lower Saxony alone in 2015 and 2016. An apparent effect on Angela Merkel's 2015 open doors migration policy, which Angela Merkel herself has came out and went, I fucked up. This is bad. I believe the damage I've done is irreversible. She's even came out and said that herself, but all the usual suspects wouldn't print it. Why do you think you never hear from Angela Merkel anymore? Because nobody wants to print her comments now. It is a familiar pattern across Western Europe's industrial hubs. In the first half of 2022, foreign nationals committed 70% of violent robberies in Paris. Another academic study in Sweden found that in 2017, immigrants accounted for 73% of all cases of manslaughter, murder, and attempted murder. God damn. To the residents of Ireland, however, the human carnage unfolding on the continent had been abstract. Traditionally protected from the dangers of mass unvetted migration due to being an economic backwater, the spectacular economic boom of the 90s and early 2000s spurred a massive influx of migrants to such a degree that now more than 20% of the Irish population is foreign born. So 1 in 5 people aren't even born in Ireland. In 2022, Ireland had its reckoning with migrant crime. Predictably, the government attempted to cover it up. That's something the government does all the time. They don't want, basically, the government wants migration at any cost. At any cost. Why? There's a bunch of different reasons. Loads of people think that it's just because, it's just sheer capitalism or something where it's like, oh, we want the little people that are going to work off the books for £3 an hour and all that, we need labour. Some people are saying it's for the Greater Europe project. Apparently when things eventually kick off with Russia and China, we're going to need lots and lots of bodies for the conscription that's inevitably going to happen. That's one theory. Other theories, legally I'm not allowed to talk about. But governments, they don't want people pointing out all this stuff. They're basically saying, migration, you're getting it, deal with it. Okay, your 5-year-old got abducted and you'll never find her again. Whatever. A small price to pay for diversity, right? So they guard all of these statistics because they want people to stop pointing out the horrific effect that it's having on the native population. A brutal murder on the afternoon of January 12th, 2022. Aisling Murphy, a talented musician and teacher, was set upon and murdered in brutal fashion. The 23-year-old was stabbed 11 times in the neck while walking along the bank of the Grand Canal in Tullamore, County Offaly. The savage nature of the attack and the fact that it occurred in broad daylight sent shockwaves through the country. 3 days after the murder, the Irish Times printed a piece quoting an epidemic of femicide and a culture of misogyny in Ireland. Similarly, The Guardian asked if Murphy's murder would change Ireland's culture of misogyny. National soul-searching had begun, and the narrative that emerged was that Ireland's men were to blame. Maybe not all men, maybe 1 in 5 of them. Maybe 1 in 5 of them are responsible. Dozens of vigils were held across the nation, promoted by the Women's Council of Ireland. Speaking to a crowd of thousands outside of government buildings in Dublin, the head of the council, Orla O'Connor, stated the death of Aisling Murphy must be a watershed moment to end violence against women. Helen McEntee, Ireland's Minister of Justice, tweeted, I am working to ensure we have a society that does not tolerate this any longer. However, now when it comes out, I make the jokes where I go like women's rights, cringe, and all that stuff. Right, I'll drop character for a wee minute. I am 100% absolutely against any type of violence towards women, except that little smack on the arse. They fucking love that. You should do it at the water cooler. Do it when they're at their desk. They love that shit. Don't do that. Right, but I'm against any and all violence against women, right? And I absolutely agree with you. Something absolutely should be done to protect women walking the streets. However, My method, right, is see the people that are doing it, stop letting them in. Like that's mine. Don't stop letting them in. Basically, if you want the chickens to stop being eaten, stop letting in the foxes, right? That's what I'm saying. That's the problem when you're going, oh, it's misogyny, and it's like, yeah, a lot of these immigrants come from very misogynistic countries where like women aren't even people technically, right? So it's a case of you're not going to bring them here unless you want to put them through forceful re-education, which leftists are all about. If you're a right winger, if you're an immigrant, no, you just don't understand. He's literally murdering a woman in the corner. That's their culture, you fucking baguette. Right? That's the problem. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. We should stop all violence against women. It's just that basically my solution's right. My solution's right. You just won't acknowledge it because you're worried about being called a racist. In an official statement, Prime Minister Michael Martin said, "We have spent much of the past week questioning our attitudes towards women. Are we doing anything to help?" I mean, I'm trying. I'm trying to get the fucking wall built, right? I'm trying my best. Like, I'm doing my best, right, to try and help the women, the native women, at least of this wonderful nation, right? I'm trying. We're all trying. In fact, it's just that the solutions you're proposing aren't actually going to do anything to fix it. Because, yeah, okay, there are men among the native population who are absolute monsters and will hit women, but they're not randomly stabbing them to death in the middle of the street because, right? There's a certain type of man that's doing it, a 1 in 5 man that's doing it. From one of those 1 in 5 neighbourhoods. Are we doing enough to help? Are we part of the problem? No, because I'm not going around murdering women. Sorry. I'd call it me being a little moral stick in the mud, but I think that's an awful thing to do. I think that's murdering women at random. I think that's bad. I think that's, applause for me. I think that's bad. Irish men hung their heads in shame as the magnitude and ferocity of their misogyny was hammered home. Why is it? Why? Why are you hanging your head? You didn't kill the bitch, right? A 1 in 5 man did. But then the narrative hit a speed bump. On January 18th, Josef Puska, an immigrant from Slovakia, was arrested. Yeah, turned out it was an immigrant. How about that? It would later emerge that Puska was a convicted sex offender in his native country and yet was allowed into the country anyway. Now, you would think like that would be like the number one. See, if I was going to allow immigration, I mean, I wouldn't, but if I was going to, right, basically if the guy said, okay, top of the list, what do you not want as sex offenders? I do not want sex offenders. Any noncery, any touchery, any of that creepy weird fucking shit, they do not get in. That's it, hands down. No appeal, no nothing, absolutely not. They don't get in. That would be number one. But apparently because this guy was a sex offender, he got in anyway. He got in anyway, and now he killed a woman. He had further reportedly been a person of interest in 2 assaults, one in Prague shortly before moving to Ireland, and one in England while living in Ireland. The narrative of misogynistic Irishmen should have died on the day of Puska's arrest. It didn't. Blaming misogyny, in June 2022, Justice Minister McEntee announced a 5-year strategy that would update school curricula to include consent, coercive control, domestic violence, and safe use of the internet. That's going to fix it. Basically, that's going to fix it. Where you teach the native population all of those things, but then someone who's in their 20s and therefore won't be attending school because they're in their 20s comes over and receives none of that education. So basically, the native population will know, but the foreigners coming in won't. So what's this going to do to stop foreigners from attacking people? Nothing. Empty, hollow shit. The same shit you always expect for the government. Performative pantomime fucking crap that achieves absolutely nothing but costs a lot of money. The move was deeply cynical as it was McEntee's own party that had allowed Puska the sex offender, that's his name, the convicted sex offender to enter the country 10 years earlier. Rather than acknowledge those failings, she deflected blame for Murphy's murder onto the boys and men of Ireland, even though the boys and men of Ireland didn't fucking do it. The last part of her initiative, safe use of the internet, is particularly important as McEntee is the minister behind the draconian criminal justice bill or hate speech bill. Basically, the Irish government have realised that things are kicking off too far, so they're having to kicking up too much. Basically, the native population are getting really, really fucking angry. So see how the plan, they're hitting fast forward on it. They're like, oh shit, let's just go full draconian just now. We're going to basically order social media companies to allow us full access to everyone's DMs and messaging apps. We want to be able to arrest people for possessing memes on their phone. See how the Scottish hate crime bill, the new criminal justice bill that Ireland are putting in, it's a copy-paste of that. It's essentially a copy-paste of it, which recently caused an international storm after Donald Trump Jr. called it insane, and Elon Musk promised legal action to halt it. Not only did McEntee use the murder of Murphy to deflect from government failings on mass migration, but she also used it to sell her highly unpopular hate speech laws. By the way, it's been proven and known for a fact that hate speech laws do nothing to stop it. They actually breed and further cause resentment towards foreigners and migrants, because basically they get special little treatment and special law. Basically, if one of them comes up and punches you, that person will probably get let off the hook. You know, maybe a little fine, probably not. They'll get let off the hook. You go up and punch them, fucking hell, you're looking at a guaranteed prison sentence, because they now have privilege over you. Basically, any crime you commit against them is treated so much more harshly than any crimes they commit against you. It's the same as, you know, if a black person back during, like, Jim Crow or during the slavery days did anything to a white person, you know, they took that motherfucker to the nearest tree and strung him up. But if a white person did anything to a black slave, then, Jesus Christ, doesn't matter. You're doing that to property, so who the fuck cares? Pretty much becoming the exact same thing over here. That's where you go, did you just say this was like slavery? Did you just say this was like slavery? Yeah, I did. Cry about it. Published a lengthy on the 1 year anniversary of Murphy's murder, the Irish Examiner published a lengthy piece shaming the men of Ireland. The paper quoted Orla O'Connor, who resoundingly supported McEntee's strategy. We must also tackle the root cause of this epidemic. We must educate our children about the misogyny that underlies male violence against women. That's not going to do anything for the foreigners, because they're all arriving here when they're like 18, 19, 20 or even older. So they're not going to be in the school to receive this type of education. Again, performative shit. There is a gap left. By our education system. It didn't matter that Puska wasn't a product of Irish society or the Irish education system, because the person was a foreigner. The femicide narrative, the same article pointed out that 2022 had been the worst year for violence against women, and ultimately femicide in Ireland in a decade, with 12 women dead as a result. However, the data does not support claims that there is a femicide epidemic in Ireland, much less the idea that indoctrination of the nation's boys is the cure. Of the 12 women murdered in Ireland in 2022, 5 were killed by non-integrated immigrants. Joseph Puska had, and that's only 1 in 5, so despite making up blah blah blah, you know the rest. Joseph Puska murdered Aisling Murphy. Romanian Andrei Dobra is awaiting trial for the murder of his fiancée, Joanna Mihela. Romanian Daniel Blaneru is awaiting trial for the murder of his partner, Larisa Serbin. German Günter Lose is waiting trial for the murder of his elderly mother, Ruth. That's a weird one. Brazilian Miller Pacheco is waiting trial for the murder of his former partner, Bruno Fonseca. All of the alleged killers needed translators throughout their court appearances. These women's deaths are apparently the direct result of failed open border migration policies, which they are. The nationality of the person who assaulted Louise Muckle, which likely caused her death, hasn't been made public yet. And whenever they don't make the nationality public, that's as good as giving an answer. Muckle herself killed a father of 2 in 1996 in a drunk driving incident, and police are investigating a circle of her friends described as having serious alcohol dependency issues. Mary Bergen was allegedly murdered by her daughter, though journalists and activists leave out this detail when including her in the femicide epidemic in Ireland. None of these 7 women were murdered by misogynistic Irish men. Other causes: of the remaining 5 female victims, Lisa Cash, Miriam Burns and Sandra Boyd were allegedly killed by family members. Lisa Cash, 18, and her twin brother and sister, 8, were allegedly killed by their older brother. That's fucking horrific. The Irish Examiner article cynically included Lisa in its femicide list because she was 18 and legally a woman, removing the fact that she was there was apparently no sex-based motivation. Similarly, including the accidental shooting of Sandra Boyd by her brother is misleading when used to prop up a narrative that there is a plague of international misogynistic murders of women in Ireland. So basically, one of them wasn't really a murder, it was accidental. Like Bergen, the Burns murder was also allegedly by a family member, which would make both of these deaths parricide, meaning the murder of a parent by her child. These murders usually take place after a lifetime of family conflict. Including these family killings as an emergency femicide. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry it's late. I need to stop leaving these to like the last thing in the day. Including these family killings in an emergency femicide epidemic is again misleading. Of the remaining two murders, Lisa Thompson's death, like Louise Muckle's, was apparently substance abuse related. A man and a woman, alleged drug dealers, have been arrested as part of the murder inquiry, and both were known to the victim, a suspected drug addict, whose apartment was allegedly being used for the duo's drug storage. So that doesn't seem to be we're going to murder this woman, it seems to be a drug trade related killing. Thompson and Muckle were likely not targeted for their sex, but because of their tragic lifestyle choices. This leaves one murder of a woman in Ireland in 2022 that was allegedly committed by an unrelated Irish male. Sean Egan is currently awaiting trial for the murder of Sharon Crean. One woman's alleged murder by an Irish male is extremely low for a country of 5 million people. I would say so. Close the border. There is clearly no epidemic of femicide native to the Irish, and this is backed up by international data. Ireland consistently ranks among the lowest for violence against women in the EU, and I mean, considering how much they drink, impressive. Right, I know. I'm just saying, like, the Irish and the Scottish get this right. You've heard of the phrase, Catholic fathers. Yeah. No one outside of that will get the joke, but we will. Almost half the women murdered in Ireland in 2022 would still be alive if their killers had not been allowed into the country. Politicians such as Helen McEntee and Michael Martin co-opted the death of Aisling Murphy to cover for their disastrous migration policies. With the help of the Irish press and activists like Orla O'Connor, they gaslit a nation into believing women were in mortal danger from native Irish men. They used the fear to push through radical feminist school curriculum reform to sell their war on free speech. And that is exactly what it is. Basically, they're the ones causing the problem, but instead, like many things, they just blame the native population. And the native population are sitting there like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's just what they do. They want to bring in the migrants, and if the migrants do anything bad, it's your fault. It's your fault. You obviously weren't nice to them. That's why they came over here and raped everyone. Like, that's just, it's just their culture. The reality is that Ireland's rate of deadly violence against women could be slashed by up to half through sensible migration policy, which is correct, and even further by mental health and substance abuse programs. The government does not wish to undertake these achievable goals because that would require them to acknowledge their role in the deaths of these women. It's much easier to preach on the corpses of innocent victims and shame the men of Ireland, which is exactly what they're doing. They've basically caused the problem. They were the direct cause of all these people's deaths, but they're going to turn around and blame the native population because if it obviously wasn't obvious to any of you by this point, they hate the native population and they want the immigrants to come in and they want them to take over. That's essentially what they want. I'm going down a path, so I am. But yeah, this is just standard leftist nonsense. They cause the problems and then blame you for the outcomes of the problems they caused that we're all like trying to stop. States were a bad idea. They just were. States were a fucking bad idea.